Welcome back to Waaaghtaktiks. We're here to talk about the War Horde Reloaded War for the Pariah Nexus. So, guys, as most of you know, maybe some of you are new, the War Horde is our original index rule detachment. But not only is it that, but is very similar to how Orks have been playing Warhammer 40k since at least 8th edition, with Sustain 1 being the detachment's baseline rule. That has been very consistent and common for Orks to fall back onto whenever we face hard times or generally need great rules. Why this is good for Orks, may you be asking? Well, that's because Orks are one of the armies that cares more about quantity than quality, right? So something like War Horde for Sustain 1 is inherently good for the vast majority of our data sheets, especially because we're in combat. Not to mention for the fact that the enhancements and stratagems in War Horde are exceptional. If they were in any other armies, they would be very, very useful, very, very powerful as well. And not just because Orc datasheets are behind them. If anything, Orc datasheets are the weak part behind them, since our datasheets are not known for being the best, right? So in this breakdown, we're going to talk about exactly how War Horde works, just in case you're returning or you haven't been playing for a little bit, getting refamiliar with War Horde, or you're trying to optimize your list going into Nexus because you've been pushed out of Bully Boys. Maybe you want to fall back on Snagga Boys. You don't know how to run them. So in this video, I'm going to try to break it down in roughly maybe 20-25 minutes. God, Gork and Mork willing, that I can get to all the points that I want to here, show you a couple list examples at the end, but we always have lists on this channel, so those are just some of my ideas at the end, and some actual breakdowns on what I think War Horde does in Pariah Nexus that makes them better than other detachments. But before we get into that, let's get into our sponsors, Baron of Dice. They're going to be getting us our own personal set of dice that we're going to be setting out in maybe a month time or so. Also, check our description for 5% discount because nobody likes taxes. Shout out to Baron of Dice for supporting our paying competition. Now, let's get back to the War Horde discussion. Now, why is War Horde so strong in Pariah Nexus? Before I look at the strats and everything. One is because something we've learned with our new terrain layouts, deployment layouts, and just general gameplay of how this Nexus works is that pressure armies, melee armies, are very, very good and very, very important here, as they really do give us good staging positions in this. War Horde not only allows us to hit better with our quantity of punches, but it is one of the only, if not the only, detachment in some ways that gives us exceptional movement buffs to our infantry, which are more valuable melee units. So that's something that we should keep in mind when you're talking about playing Nexus. What War Horde wants to do, if you're a newer player, is just keep in mind in your head as we go over this real quick, is say that you're playing a 5-objective mission, Search and Destroy, which is one of the more common setups you'll be playing in this edition, in this Nexus, is you have 5 objectives typically, and you have to think of your what people call triangle of control, which generally means it's going to be your home objective, the center objective, and the objective that's naturally closest to you, meaning if you measure it, it is the least amount of movement required to take that objective. Natural expansion means that you will generally go there and be controlling that for the majority of the game, meaning that last 2 objectives on the table, if you're not considered the middle, of course, is the far objective, which will be your opponent's natural expansion, and their deployment zone. What War Horde excels at is that it allows us to quickly reach our opponents, what would be considered natural expansion, and pressure them with great pressure and lethality. We'll go over units and then combos that will help you allow to do that. And War Horde giving you a lot of small MSU units, which is one of the strengths for Orks as a whole, means that you'll be screening, board control, and still bullying the primary in most ways possible. Not to mention that some of the innate units that are really, really good in War Horde are very powerful for playing the mid-table and really punishing armies that want to come out to play. So let's get stuck into the stratagems to start out. Like I said, there's going to be a general breakdown, and we're going to get more nuanced as we continue to go. So stratagems, and I'm going to say this from my favorite, is kind of how I ordered this, to, you know, still very, very good because War Horde. So I have, as you can see, I'm actually only displaying the top 4 because these are the 4 very, very important ones if you're new to War Horde or playing that you need to pay attention to. So Unbridled Carnage, very, very simple, yet this is most undoubtedly the most common strat you're using in War Horde. So the effect is unmodified hit rolls of 5+ become critical hits. And that'll be important because Ghaz is also very important in this detachment. So just making it so you're getting sustained on 5 for 1 CP makes every unit far more lethal, far more reliable. Very, very common strat. Always have it in your back pocket. Now, second, very, very important strat, in my opinion, that people seem to sleep on if you're a newer person or player, is how pivotal it is that you have Orks is Never Beaten, which is your ability to fight on death. One things I want to point out here, if you're a newer player, is how this strat actually works, right? It says when this happens is in the fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, right? So that means you don't really get to see the actual casualties from this, which is the weak side. You have to just assume you're going to die and pop the strat. So that does suck. So your army does, so units that do the targeted unit from your army that was selected of 1 or more attacks from the attacking unit. And what happens is those models, once they're dead, right, you don't remove them. You actually treat them as normal, meaning you still get to pile in, just in case you're wondering, and fight with them just like if they were still alive. And then you remove them from the battlefield. So the question you get a lot of the time is, do I get to pile in when using the strat? The answer is yes. It is very important to understand the strat. Also, when you're fighting, this strat is just very important for the fighting matchups, right? Other combat armies that want to get involved with you, Orks need to trade that it's a part of our controlled rate of attrition, meaning if you fail to do this even once in one of your melee matchups, you are far more likely to lose because you're not getting your trades with your very high valuable units into other enemies' high valuable combat units. Always have this strat in your back pocket. Always be ready to use it. Now, Hard as Nails. Hard as Nails is actually one of the more overused strats, in my opinion, if you're a newer player. You tend to want to always hard as nails when someone's looking at you, right? Let me break down hard as nails real quick. First of all, it's in your opponent's shooting or fight phase, right? That means you cannot pop hard as nails in Overwatch. I know it sucks, but that's something that you have to keep in mind, right? And it's in your opponent's shooting or fight phase. That means in your fight phase, necessarily, do you get to use it? No, not according to this wording, because this is in your opponent's fight phase or shooting phase. Now, oh, sorry, it says or the fight phase. Sorry, here. So it's your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase. Sorry, I must mess that up. Sorry. Just after your unit has been targeted. This is very important for our awesome toughness thresholds on Orks. Just keep in mind that this unit can only be selected if you're excluding grots and vehicle units and monsters, which monsters is the change. Your gargantuan squiggoth cannot do anymore. The effect is until the end of the phase, each time a model attacks this unit, subtract 1 from the wound roll. So the most valuable unit that you'll find is being used on will be your Squighog boys. Very important, but just keep in mind when you're using this strat, guys, if someone's going from 5 to 6s, that's the most value you can get out of it. If it's going from 4 to 5, that's extreme value. If someone's going from 2s to 3s, not necessarily great value there, right? And if they're very low volume of attack, maybe 3s to 4s can be of value. But for the most part, you really should only be using this when you're changing enemies to wound you on 5s or 6s, or if it's very high value attacks and you have a great invul and for some reason like a 4-up, or you're taking a 4-up armor on, let's say, a Mega Knob, then changing it to 4s and winning on 4s could be valuable. But don't overuse this, as fighting on death, unbridled carnage, and even the next strat we're going to talk about, Here We Go, is very important in this detachment. So here we go at the start of your movement phase is when you declare this, not in the command phase, but in the movement phase. You select 1 Ork infantry unit, so only infantry, no squigs. Until the end of the turn, add 2 to the advance and 2 to the charge roll. Now, that's very important because you can also stack this with one of our enhancements that's going to be very, very pivotal. Also, this helps a lot for Ghaz Gultraka. The last 2 strats that are innate to War Horde are Kareen, which is on a 6 only. So if your model blows up, you can make a totally normal move with your vehicle that blows up. Let's say it's an Ork truck. The Ork truck is to move its total of 12 inches, and then it blows up and the guys disembark and do its thing, right? So that's very important. When it actually happens, very unlikely. Then mob rule, if a unit of 10 or greater, so full health unit, not full health, sorry, not half health unit, is close to another unit, and that unit fails battle shock, if as long as it's within 6 inches of that unit, you can use your mob rule 10 unit, not battle shocked unit, to make the other unit now clear its battle shock in the command phase. So if something fails battle shock, then you're 6 inches, you can tell the mob rule, your 20 units of boys can tell someone else to pass it. Very uncommon to happen, but it's something for you to know. Now I look at the enhancements, which do very well at comboing into the enhancements and our orc data sheets as a whole. So really quick, we have Cunning but Brutal for 15 points. Orc models only. When the barrel is eligible to the bear is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a unit in which it fell back. In a charge in which it fell back. Very good for re-engagement. Orcs are kind of glass cannons sometimes, so it's not always you're going to get the value out of this one, right? But if you got 15 points, it can be very, very good on something like a beast boss or a unit of knobs. Next, you have Super Cyborg Body. You get a 4+ Feel No Pain. This was a totally slept on enhancement at the beginning of the index. Now more than ever, people really understand the value since we lost most of our 4 Feel No Pains. I really like this on the Death Killer Wartrike. That is the #1 staple for it, but it can also go on a Big Mech in Mega Armor. As utilizing him in reserves, coming on the table edge and harassing an enemy natural expansion deployment zone or natural expanding objective marker can be very, very valuable. Next, we have Headwappa's Kill Choppa, a nice old classic. Squigs have somewhat fallen out of favor, but Dev Wounds have not. Even though they've now limited on something like Custode, they can still take saves. It's still important that when a unit is equipped with this, they get devastating wounds. It's most valuable on a unit that has built-in anti-4+ monster. For example, that'll be your beast bosses on Squigosaurs, and you can make an argument for a beast boss on foot still taking value in Headwappa's Kill Choppa. Don't advise this for a war boss on foot. For 20 points, I don't know, take the chance on even a fallback and charge if you can, right? So Headwappa is just, he used to be great on a knob on Smash a Squig. That's not a thing anymore. So really, he's very limited to just a beast boss on Squigosaur, maybe a beast boss on foot you can make an argument for. Other than that, you know, Headwappa is not as beloved as it used to be, but Follow Me Ladz is. For 25 points, you get +2 to your movement. That's kind of a lot, but it's very, very valuable, as Orcs have a 1-turn go, which is the WAAAGH, meaning you really need that movement, and the fact that you can stack it with your unit of, let's say, knobs to get them Follow Me Ladz and Here We Go. Now you're getting an extra 6 inches to that movement when you stack all of what you're getting on there from the charge, advance, and movement. Your units are now flying through terrain, really getting stuck in. Follow Me Ladz is almost always necessary on a list or valuable, because you always have that one unit that really, really wants to hit in a War Horde detachment. Now, let's talk about War Horde combos. Let's say you're a bit new and you want to know a couple of staples. You don't want to be overwhelmed. You're starting to build list and you want to know what you have on there, right? You have, for the combos, I try to keep it simple as some of my favorites, but the ones that you'll pretty much see on the vast majority of lists. So you have a beast boss on foot with 10 beast Snagga boys and a truck. The enhancement options here that are my favorite would be Cunning but Brutal. You can make an argument for Headwappa's Kill Choppa. You can make an argument for Follow Me Ladz. I think Follow Me Ladz ends up being on other valuable units, but if you're playing a smaller game, maybe you just want to put it on there. The most valuable stratagem here that you're most commonly going to always have in your back pocket when your Beast Boss and Beast Snagga Boy combo is going off is Unbridled Carnage. Let me explain. Now, you read the data sheet on the Beast Snagga Boys, and it says they get to reroll hits against vehicles or monsters. You look at that and you think it's kind of dumb, considering they're almost always winning them on 5s and 6s. Why the heck is this a good rule? It's a good rule because it coincides very well with the Beast Boss on foot. Now, the Beast Boss on foot is giving the Snaggas +1 to hit. He himself is hitting on 2s natively. Then he'll give himself another +1 to hit. Feels really good. Therefore, he will land his hits on 2s, but when you pop Unbridled Carnage, he'll get sustained 5s and 6s. Now, the wording of the Snagga Boys does not say reroll failed hit rolls. It says reroll the hit roll, meaning what's statistically better for you to do on average is to pick up anything that's not a 5 or 6 when the Beast Boss is going, right? When he's starting to hit on his own, you are going to use his 7 attacks profile. So a 6+1 on the wall, but we'll say a 6 profile, more of his sweep, right? Because you want more volume attacks to get his dev wounds on, which are the other part of his data sheet ability. So when you're rolling out his 7 attacks, let's say you get 1 or 2 5s and 6s, you're going to pick up the other 5 or 4 dice and you're going to roll those again. In this way, you're fishing for more 5s and 6s. That way you can end up spiking and getting up to maybe 10 hits on your actual Beast Boss on foot. Then when you go to roll and you go for wounds, on average, that could be 10 dev wounds right there, just from the Beast Boss on himself going into an enemy vehicle type unit. Very, very valuable, not over the top complicated, but can be slept on if you're a newer player. Makes that unit punch way above its pay grade, demolishing greater demons, demolishing vehicles. That's how you use that strat. Next is Death Killer War Trike. You can, or War Boss and Mega Armor. Now, if you're running Death Killer War Trike, I think 3 bikers is totally fine. Sometimes people go to 6. I think 6 is a bit too big of a profile. Just go ahead and 3. You need to really think of ablative wounds, meaning the splitting of wounds here was what makes this durable. All right. The fact that some of them, 2 of those models have 3 wounds, the other one has 4, means you can split this kind of damage between what profiles you're getting to try to keep more of those dudes alive or waste some of the enemy's damage points. And then it goes onto the trike and he's taking his Feel No Pain. A lot of the time, you'll lose all 3 of those biker kit models, but you'll leave the trike alive. Why it's important to have the bikers is because you don't want the trike taking straight meltas or las cannons to the face, right? You want to waste some heavy bolters and other things like that. Not to mention, it's great for Artist Nails. That's a great unit for just popping Artist Nails and actually using this combo to head either towards the enemy's natural expansion objective, right? If you want to pressure an enemy's objective because you can auto advance 6, let them know I can come take this. If you put a transport here, I'll simply tag it. My trike has 3 OC. Very, very good. But if you have something on, let's say, Zodrad on your list, maybe Zod wants to go to the natural expansion. If they don't have volume of attacks, they're more value attacks. You might use that to go to your home field objective. Your natural expansive objective. Screen your backfield a little bit by swinging the bikers out. You could take advantage of his big base in that way. Now you pivot with him. You can kind of make up some of his movement too. On the flip side, you have the War Boss and Mega Armor solo with Super Cyborg Body, and you could pop Hard as Nails on him. All right, he's sitting at T6 with 7 wounds, extremely valuable, durable for what he is. He does lack volume of attack, therefore he could get bogged down by little chaff units. He's good at either coming in and scoring a secondary, since some of them need you to stay alive, harassing an enemy objective, or just trying to drop into the enemy backfield, knowing him that he's there, and then having him run around later and do objectives. He doesn't even necessarily have to fight. He just has to be super hard to kill and score you secondary points. Now we move to a funny, more niche combo, yet mixed in with a very, very powerful combo. We have the War Boss and or Big Mech, right? That means if you're taking a 20-man unit of boys, you can take 2 characters. That one would be the War Boss, one would be also Big Mech. Of course, you can use other things, but this is a combo I want to talk about today. You can either take a simple War Boss with 10 knobs, power claws, and a truck, Follow Me Ladz as the basic enhancement, and be ready to either use Here We Go on that unit or Unbridled Carnage. Keep in mind, if the unit is within the truck, you cannot use Here We Go on that unit. That means you need to disembark them prior to popping Here We Go to stage them. That way you can take the max potential out of them. But for the most part, if you move them and then you simply do a simple disembark on your following turn, advance and charge, and you have your Follow Me Ladz already, you can cover a lot of distance and really hit something that's valuable. Of course, Unbridled Carnage is very vital for this unit if you get it going too. Or if you want to be a cheeky buzzard and you want to use a 20-man unit and you have a Big Mech in this unit, the Big Mech allows you to move through people's units. Let's say you want to use just a simple knob with a Big Mech. What you can do is Follow Me Ladz that unit, Here We Go that as well, and now you actually can walk through screens with this unit. Very uncommon ability and combination that's used, but for anybody that maybe bought the Stomper Box or has this model, you want to use it, I thought it's fun to kick it in, right? Orks are having a great time in Nexus. You might as well know some of the fun combos and off-the-wall combos too, that I think can actually come to pay out, right? People like to use screens. If you can run through them and just straight up hit their soft, juicy bits, that could be really good. Squink to your guard matchups. All right. Then another combo that isn't innate just to War Horde, but is very, very good in War Horde, are SWAT teams. Now, SWAT team is more a concept than a basic combo, but what the concept of a SWAT team is you take 2 different units that are about 5-man size, and they can take a leader, and you put them in a truck, right? Very kind of straightforward in that way. One example of a proper SWAT team would be 5 knobs with power claws, a War Boss, and then you stick 5 flash kits into that truck. Therefore, there's 11 models in that truck, and they're 2 different units. That way, one can clear chaff, the other can clear elite power armor, whatever it may be. SWAT teams are very valuable for War Horde because you get a lot of units in War Horde. Trucks are always kind of put the pressure forward, and it allows you to get into skirmishes and even valuable fight trades when you have just a simple truck that can hide these 10 models, flash gets having huge bases, yet get out and get engaged and getting stuck in fights and leave the truck behind to do secondaries or to tag something that doesn't want to be tagged. Last but certainly not least is Ghaz. Some people might pay for the big brick. I think it's a little too expensive now. Go ahead and either stick 2 models with them or 3. What's very important about Ghaz in this detachment is his aura of lethal. Now, that aura innately combos with Unbridled Carnage because it is a critical 5, meaning on the wall turn, you can pick one of your units. It could be a Beast Snagga Boy unit, a Knob unit, whatever it may be, and that unit is now getting sustain and lethal from Unbridled Carnage on the wall turn. Therefore, Ghaz is giving a unit a substantial ability to punch up. Something like Knobs can punch up into something that has even a 4-up invuln and great durability. Beast Snagga Boys can fish for lethal wounds against something like a Catan, where you run in there, you're hitting on 2s, fishing for 5s and 6s. That way you can put mass damage of damage 1 into Catans and make them take a bucket load of saves instead of simply having all your damage 2 from maybe a Knob unit, for example. As well as Ghaz himself gives his own unit 5 lethal sustain. That means his sweep attack goes crazy, and the Mega Knobs he's with can end up going crazy as well. Units that really appreciate that aura of lethals are Boys, Snaggas, Knobs, and Squigs. Very, very valuable in that case. Good way to take advantage and really throttle on that WAAGH turn. Some people might think it's too much. Not necessarily. When WAAGH is your only army-wide ability turn for one turn of the game, it really needs to swing that battle, and War Horde really assures that swing in battle. Now, let's say you have a collection and you want to know a little bit about all these different units that you can add. I'm going to go through pretty much a list of units here, going from ideal units to proper units to simply good units in War Horde. That way, if you don't like my list at the end, you can have some of my thoughts on some of these units and fit them in as you see fit. So for ideal units, Ghazghul Thraka. Like I said, the lethal sustain aura combo is amazing, and getting lethals on the wall is very important. Not only that, with how War Horde wants to work, where you want to pressure the flanks of the army, the opponent, really get up in their field, and then have them go into a no-enter zone of the middle of the table, Ghaz assures that you don't want to enter the middle table type of energy, right? Next, and the damage 4 is very important, as it's one of our only ways to get that damage 4. Now, Knobs are very valuable because they give you something we lack, which is AP. So Knobs giving you that very valuable volume of high strength, good AP, and damage 2 is very, very important. They're really good for multiple strats in this detachment. Probably the best unit for fight on death, if not the Squigs. And they just help counter a lot of different power armor problems that we can have. Next, we have Beast Snagga Boys as an ideal unit. Because of their volume of attack, getting up to strength 6 is really good. And as Loki said before, in some of the combos we went over, you can see how they can help you punch up into very durable units. Then we have the Beast Boss on foot. Dev wounds are important, and this detachment allows him to spike. War Horde, the War Boss, is very important in the detachment, whether you use him with Boys or Knobs, because +1 to hit is super good when you're just looking for volume. And his data sheet ability gives him volume as well. Zagra Wart Snagga, the reason he's very valuable is the combination you already have with something like Here We Go, or is very, very good for stealing someone's home field objective. Also, we just talked about taking flanks, pressuring the opponent. Zod getting 12 inches of movement and then being able to run up and get stunk in on someone is very, very good. You can actually end up loving that in ways that you can never imagine. Proper units, meaning they're very, very good, but you might see them here one or you know what, these units proper on this line, because so much stuff is good in War Horde, even these proper units, you'll pretty much see them in the vast majority of War Horde lists. We have Flash Gits at the top of this list. Great trading units for only 80 points. They're versatile. They allow you to shoot and charge. They have built-in 4 attacks, which is good for War Horde itself because the sustains, and then they can get up to 5 attacks on the wall, which is obnoxious. The fact that they have guns that pretty much want to go off just once means you get off once, you shoot, and then you go ahead and advance and charge the next turn. Great for clearing cheap power armor armies or 2 wound models. Even Chaff at toughness 3 flash gets are great for that if you have to deal with some guards players. Next, you have trucks. The War Horde is very favorable to MSU style, meaning that having a lot of trucks on your list is always going to feel like a great way to go. 3 needs seems to be the magic number. War Trike or War Bikers, I think, is very common in War Horde as well. Maybe not the most pivotal, but they can be common because the Death Killer War Trikes feel no pains, or because they're on durability and ablative wounds. Grots are always good on any orc list, but having them for screens is very important when you're going against other melee matchups. Storm Boys, great other screening units, but they're more versatile for scoring. In War Horde, they actually have the potential to go out and punch something if you're willing to use Unbridled Carnage to them early game, kill maybe a little Eldar unit, whatever it may be, because they can advance and charge the whole game. So they can actually punch up a little bit or actually trade just because of this detachment itself. Boys are extremely versatile for sticky objective and volume of punches. Very good in this detachment when you're just trying to say, oops, I touched the middle objective. Do you want to come in here now? Do you want to commit this turn? It's only 10 boys. Oops, I touched my natural expansion objective. Now I'm just standing over here hiding behind the terrain. You're going to have to come get it. Sticky objectives is always good, as you always want to move forward. Squig Hog Boys, the fact that they can get durable in this attachment with hard as nails and very spike their damage. War Horde is arguably the best attachment for them. The hunt is very good too, but the detachment rules are the issue there. So if you got your squigs, War Horde is where it is. Good options. Maybe you won't see them all the time, but if you have a good deep collection, go ahead. Pain Boy can be good because he can be in mobs with 20 boys, which are solid in this detachment. They could be with knobs if you're looking to just pop hard as nails for that -1 to wound already, ride the feel no pain and pick D3 back up. Also, the fact that he might spike on his syringes is kind of hilarious, right? The fact that you might end up getting another additional hit and then mortal wounds into an enemy character could feel really good. Kind of funny. Battle Wagon, great for the 20-man unit mob delivery or even elite bricks where you're trying to pressure and threaten the mid-table but keep your profile small. Mandos are a great unit, as in for board pressure. Like we said before, if you're playing something like Four Corners, having something like Mando staged up behind your natural expansion terrain and just letting the enemy know, hey, I'm going to be able to go up in there and tag that, or I'm going to be able to turn 1 pressure you if I go near your natural expansion zone. If you load a bunch of these or have a trike and Zod, you can even throw in a turn 1 wall, which is very complex. But for War Horde itself, Mandos are good because they give you great staging ability early in the game so that you don't get pressured, pulled behind. Other enemy infiltrators just kind of move block your trucks or your squigs. Commandos are very important in War Horde for that reason. And then Mega Knobs. Mega Knobs are a little too pricey, not really that good in War Horde, but because they go with Ghaz, they get a major shout out. Now, Snickrot is always great. What I will say is Snickrot doesn't need to go with his commandos. You can sit him in your back corner, wait for later in the game to just jump out and actually try to score for you. If you put him early and infiltrate without a plan, he might just get killed off too early, which could be your real failure when you're playing with Snickrot. Now, I want to show you just a quick 2 lists that I have here that are 2 different archetypes of War Horde. You can play them to whatever style you see fit. None of these are very complex, as Index has been around for a long time, but this is for anybody who's looking at why War Horde is so strong. These lists will kind of show and focus on what they do best, and then you can change them as you see fit if you need to. At the end of this, we're going to answer the chats, and then I'm going to jump off because this is already getting long. So we have War Horde 101 with Ghaz. So this list actually does have Ghaz, and it has other pieces that I really, really like. So we have a beast boss on foot with cunning but brutal. This pretty much came down to me having points. As you can see, I have 10 points left over on this list. I kept it this way intentionally in case you guys want to pull in or out something like bikers because you don't have squigs or whatever it may be. Maybe you don't have that many grots. You can just stick in a mech gun, simple weird things like that. So maybe change enhancements, whatever you guys see fit. So beast boss on foot, cunning but brutal. That way he can fall back and get his dev wounds. Another beast boss, because these guys are so good in this detachment, and a lot of the things are tough in this meta that you can really appreciate dev wounds, or there's too much T3 bodies and you got to chew through them. Next, you have Boss Snickrot. Boss Snickrot helps you score and stage, not get counter pushed in this detachment, since you don't have commandos in this list, excuse me. This allows you to stop maybe Nurglings if you have to from hemming you in. You can keep them back, or enemy scout units if you don't really want to. Most of the time, I keep him in my back corner. He's great for scoring. Ghazghkull Thraka, because how War Horde is designed and wants to play is it wants to pressure and threaten the mid-table with something big and killy. Tends to be Ghazghkull, follow along his mega knobs that are going to take a nice big beeline to either the enemy's natural expansion, or towards the enemy's most elite unit, wherever it may be. Then you have a war boss with Follow Me Lads, which goes alongside the 10 unit of knobs. One war boss on foot basic, as he goes with a basic 5-man unit of knobs. Zagrot Wart Snagga, because I find them very vital in this detachment. A lot of people are using them more commonly as we look at Nexus for board control is very important. That's why I thought it was important to at least include them in one of my example lists. Then you have 3 trucks, as I think that's the magic number. 2 Beast Snagga Boy units that go with the Beast bosses. 2x5 flash kits. I get the question a lot of, hey, Eddie, would you rather have a 10-man unit of flash kits or 2 5-man unit of flash kits? To be fair, I think flash kits can be used either way. I tend to lean more towards SWAT teams. As you can see on this list, I have an optional SWAT team on this list. If you like to have a 10-man unit because you want to unbridled carnage with them, or Overwatch, that's fine. But I would say Overwatch is not ideal for this detachment or this unit because it doesn't have rerolls anymore, but it can become important sometimes, right? What's good about 5-man units is these guys have fat bases. That way you can dismount of a truck easier if you see fit. And for SWAT teams, as you'll see on this list. I have a 20-man unit of Gretchen that go along Zagrot, 2 10-man units of Grot, either for those combat potentials you put them forward, or for those deep strike armies you screen your backfield and move forward with everybody else. 2 Mega Knobs. The reason I like to do 1 Kill Saw and 1 Power Claw is because since they're with Ghaz, they get innately +1 to wound. Therefore, if you're going into something that has great armor save, go ahead and use the Kill Saw. If you're going against the power, a bunch of volume of guys that are trying to fight, you use your Power Claws. That way you can take advantage of his sustained lethal 5+ and get the most out of whatever you need to fight. The 1 shooter isn't valuable with Ghaz, and twin Kill Saws aren't really needed when you're strength 12 with +1 to wound, right? Then you have 10 Power Claws on your knobs because you very, very much need that. This is your very vital, what I always call the scalpel unit. I've called this since I started the channel. This is a scalpel unit because this is what you're trying to line up on one of your most problematic enemy units and throttle them, especially in this detachment, especially with Ghaz. You're going to stack Unbridled Carnage next to Ghaz's 12-inch lethal. That way you have sustained 5 lethal 5s on these Power Claws at strength 10. You'll be taking down some of your biggest problematic matchups with that combo. Then you have a 10-man unit of Power Claw knobs. These are good for your SWAT team. In this list, there's only 3 trucks. 2 of those trucks are getting the Snagga units. That's because either A, your 10-man unit of knobs can stage in the middle near your home field. That way you can pop Here We Go if someone threatens you and you let them know. That's if you know the enemy can't countercharge or run you down. Now that they're less indirect, you can actually stand outside. This also helps with the fact that GW FAQ'd war bosses so they don't get their extra 4 attacks. This keeps him out of the truck so he can get it on the wall. He can pop Here We Go, take advantage of Follow Me Lads, and chuck his way up the field in whatever direction you need fit. Or you can put him in the truck if you need and leave these 5-man units of knobs and these flash kits either in reserve or just kind of moving around, setting up and staging into skirmishes, right? But this is set up so you can take the 5 Power Claw knobs or the 5 flash kits, put them in that third trunk, stage your 10-man brick, or vice versa, depending on the matchup. Remember, guys, we don't use strategic reserves as much as we probably should sometimes as Orcs. So having 10 knobs with Power Claws or 10 flash kits or even 5-man flash kit units in reserves coming in might be a very variable thing for you to do. Then 2 units of Storm Boys. I like to keep 1 on the table and 1 in deep strike. In some melee matchups, if maybe World Eaters, you could say, you might just need both on the table to get in the way and just really make it a better matchup for you first. Now we have my next list, which is without Ghaz, and this is more squig based / Beast Snagga Boy based. I know a lot of you guys have squigs or have been involved in this. I want you to still have that ability to play with squigs, and I want you to feel more comfortable. But know that this list works, and it has some of my more favorable flavor pieces. Of course, these are just list archetypes. You don't have to copy any of these. Just help them to get your juices flowing, right, guys? These aren't necessarily the most optimized, but they are. This one is the most fun. So we have 1 Beast Boss on foot because I think he's so vital that even having 1 is very important. Death Killer Wartrike with Super Cyborg Body because he's really good, as like I said many times throughout this video. Mazrog Scrag Bag. He's my current favorite leader to put aside of Squig Hog Boys. The fact that you can pretty much deliver him to the mid-table because the squigs don't get one shot by almost anything in the game. Means that Maz has a good chance of either getting 2 charges off or getting that deep charge in later in the game, even if you kill a bunch of the squigs. He himself gives you a crazy amount of damage, which is something you need. He can still spike with that, and this detachment allows him to spike with that. Then we have a war boss with Follow Me Lads, because you still need the 10 knobs with Power Claws. They're my favorite scalpel unit. Followed by another war boss with 5 knobs. I think this combo of 5 knobs is very important. Then you have a 10-man unit of Beast Snagga for the 1 battle line unit on this list. You have 1 battle wagon on this list because I felt like going a bit more thick and chunky. I also know that not everybody has a bunch of trucks, and maybe people don't feel like using a bunch of trucks, so I wanted to diverse this up. I have simply 5 flash kits here. That's because I have another SWAT team on this that can go in the battle wagon between the knobs and the 5 flash kits. You have 10 Gretchen, 2 10-man units of Gretchen, because like I said, for screening or CP farming. 1 unit of commandos, because I think if you're not going to have Snickrot, if you're not going to have Zob, then you need commandos, right? That's how important I think these early game pieces are, that if I have one list without the other ones, I'm going to show you another list with them, right? So commandos are one of those units that they might hardly move the whole game in some matchups just to hold a position and threaten an objective, or they might just run out and YOLO into the enemies. They are a skill tech piece. I have a video on how to use them, and we talk about them all the time on the channel. So commandos are very important as Nexus has been unfolding. Then we have the 10 Power Claw knobs. They can either stand staged up, or they can just get into the battle wagon, run up, and then come out later in the second turn. You'll know based off your meta and your matchup. Then we have 1 big unit of squigs. Now, as you can see on this list, there's not a bunch of trucks because they kind of get in the way of the squigs as well. If you have the kill rig and the battle wagon, that means there needs to be another lane for your squig hog boys. So that's where the 3rd lane is going. That's with your big unit of squig hog boys. Keep in mind that this might end up being the unit that you decide to strategic reserve out of everybody and then rapid ingress in them in. So like I said, you have either the 10 knobs, you have the SWAT team, or the squigs that are all options for strategic reserves and then rapid ingress. Some are better than others, but Orc players, you really do not use this enough. I recommend we start strategic reserving, rapid ingressing in a lot more. 1 Stormboy unit in this matchup, you would in this list, you would pretty much put it in your deep strike. The war bikers go along with the Death Killer war trike, and then the kill rig, the slept on piece of this list. Giving your commandos +1 strength could feel really freaking awesome in the early game. Taking your squigs to strength 6 and then strength 7 on the wall with a lance could be really good into toughness 6 infantry, whether it's Gravis, whether it's 8-pound, whether it's weird demonic things, whether it's other orcs. That can make a difference in a matchup with the kill rig. Also, it's built in las cannons could feel really good. Taking knobs to strength 11 in the combat phase could be also a huge break point into some Tyranid monsters or some other vehicles that you may see. The kill rig is a nice tech piece for pushing up a flank and delivering those beast boss units. So this list is a bit more thick, and using some of our older tech pieces, maybe the not most competitive all-rounder list, but it does have a bunch of really good versatile tools, and you can really get stuck in with this list. It follows more of the different archetype of the beast snaggas. And that is what I have to say for the War Horde. Things did change with Pariah Nexus, but the things that never change are pressure. And War Horde does pressure almost the best out of any of these detachments that we has, probably the best. And it gives the delivering killing potential that orcs really need by stacking our most vital tool on any orc list and any orc style is quantity over quality, which is what War Horde does best, alongside movement shenanigans, high pressure octane flanks, and threatening having that death zone of if you enter the middle, I will destroy you with either Ghaz, my knobs, or my squigs. Now, Nexus. Now, boys, just know the Nexus might not look all super great for the orcs right now, but in all due time, points change, the meta swerves, but the green tide will always rise. Now, before I get off, 5 gifted memberships from WAAAGH for giving us those generous memberships. Of course, be sure to use those badges, those emotes in the chat. And remember, guys, we're going to have our paint competition results shown on Friday coming up. And always join our Discord for all our paint competitions. Feel free to join our Patreon or use any of the things in our description. All right, guys. So with that being said, there's always one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall because we knock your teeth out. Whoa!